A very good morning to all. On behalf of the Faculty of Management, Social Sciences and Humanities of General Surgeon Kotharaala Defence University, we welcome you all to the second parallel technical session on management and finance of the 14th International Research Conference on Security, Stability and the National Development in the New Normal. Ladies and gentlemen, today's second technical session will be chaired by Professor Amila Jayarathne. I have the honor of giving a brief introduction of the chairperson of this session, Professor Amila Jayarathne. Professor Amila Jayarathne is a professor in marketing and the head of the Department of Marketing Management, University of Jayarathne. She is a highly recognized academic scholar who has publications in high-impact journals making many citations. She has completed her PhD in management at the University of Nottingham in 2013. She has 2 master's degrees, one in management obtained from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura in 2008, and the second master's in public policy analysis obtained from the Graduate Institute for Policy Studies, Japan in 2006. Her Bachelor of Sciences specialized in marketing management received from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura in 2003. The most remarkable note we have to make on her is that she is well appreciated in many research conferences for her academic publications and received many world-class awards for her contribution to the development of knowledge in management and policy studies. Madam, we warmly welcome you to chair the second parallel technical session on management and finance of Faculty of Management, Social Sciences and Humanities at the 14th International Research Conference of General Surgeon Kotharaala Defence University. Madam, we cordially invite you to commence the session. Over to you, Madam.
Your sincere introduction. So it's a pleasure for me to chair today's session. It's the 14th International Conference for this research arena. So let's start with the presentation. I will invite the first presenter to go ahead with, that's GGTY Gunathilake. He will be presenting under the title of Exploration Study of Conceptualizing Individual Work Performance Construct in 3 different industries in Sri Lanka. Gunathilake, over to you. And also just keep in your mind, like for the presentation, you'll be given 10 minutes and which will be followed by 5 minutes Q&A, which will be initiated by myself. We can start now.
Good morning. I'm so pleased to present my research title, Exploratory Study in Conceptualizing Individual Work Performance Construct in 3 different industries in Sri Lanka. So the problem that I try to address in this research is the prevalence of poor performance management practices among business organizations, particularly in construction, manufacturing and IT industries in Sri Lanka, which is highly dependent upon the interpretation or the conception of individual work performance among their employees. So let me shed light on the context, background. So I've selected 3 industries. First, construction and real estate industry, which contributes 9% to national GDP, with nearly 700,000 people according to Pathira in 2020, and manufacturing contributes 40% to national GDP with over 1 million employees, and IT industry 4% to national GDP, but they have recorded nearly 10% of growth despite the pandemic, according to SLASCOM. So there are several researchers who have done research in this line in Sri Lanka, like Gunathilake, Rathnayake, and Ranasinghe. And also, all in all, Popatha has proclaimed that Sri Lankan companies are having performance management systems which are not effective. And according to Koopmans et al. 2014 and Agnes 2014, if you have the right comprehension of individual work performance, it leads to right practices and it affects the effectiveness of performance management systems. So here, if you manage something, first of all, you should know what it is that you are managing. So in this case, our concern is performance management. So we are measuring performance. To be precise, it's individual work performance which is exactly what I try to explore. So the primary objective of my research is to explore the nature of conception or the primary assumptions of individual work performance construct in 3 different industries in Sri Lanka. So to name the secondary objectives, first is to compare and contrast the level of conception of individual work performance against the current popular literature domain. And also, secondly, to explore the current practices and the expectations of individual work performance related practices. And finally, I try to came up with a simplified model of individual work performance practices. So let me justify my research. There's no research found in exploring this domain in Sri Lankan context. And even in global context, almost all the research was done primarily to assess the multidimensionality of individual work performance. For instance, Awan et al. 2020, Agnes 2014, and Bowman et al. So they have done research to explore the multidimensionality of performance. They have come up with task performance and contextual performance. And Visweswaran and once in 2000, they've come up with two elements of contextual performance. And Koopmans et al. In 2014 has proposed another dimensions of performance, individual work performance, which is adaptive performance. But in this research, in my research, I have gone beyond that. I tried to see the behavior versus results aspects, that is whether individual work performance is behaviors or results. And I shed light in understanding primary purposes and the time variations and all these things, and also all these theories and practices which were developed before the pandemic could not be valid in the post-pandemic world. So this research serves that end as well. So let's go through some literature. So according to Casio and Agnes in 2008, individual work performance is multidimensional, dynamic, and context dependent. So let me explain with an example. So this is mangoes. You get mangoes from mango tree, and you get mango tree from a mango seed planted and given a proper conditions. So same thing goes with performance. So everything starts from attitudes, values, and assumptions which give rise to behavioral domain, behaviors which give rise to results according to Armstrong. So if you take behaviors as performance, literature supports competency frameworks to measure performance according to Agnes and Armstrong. And if performance is results, according to Ravo, we use KPIs, OKR, and measures like that. So according to Casio and Agnes, depending on your focus, everything changes. So if your focus is managerial decision making, so you mostly go for composite criteria, one criteria which measures how you perform, which is actually evaluative standards. And if your focus is to increase, widen your understanding for research purpose, then literature supports to go for not one criteria, but for many criteria, which is actually a predictive nature. So in my research, I've used pragmatic research approach rather than confining to constructionist or interpretivist standpoints. So I've used deductive approach because I've used a lot of established theories and models. Yes, this is an exploratory research. I've used survey strategy. I've used both quantitative and qualitative methods as a cross-sectional study. So in this research, my unit of analysis was officer grade and above employees from these 3 selected industries. I've used convenient sampling in gathering data. In quantitative analysis, in quantitative data collection, I've used a questionnaire distributed among 150 employees, 50 from each industry. And I've conducted 5 in-depth interviews and 5 focus group discussions, 10 from each. And in qualitative analysis, I've used content analysis, and quantitative, I've used descriptive statistics, mainly for frequencies. And based on the qualitative study, I found 3 basic definitions of individual work performance. First is ability and capacity to keep producing desired results, and to what extent employees display behaviors, and to what extent employees have achieved desired results. So these are the results accordingly. So majority has conceptualized IWP as capacity to keep producing desired outcomes, but whereas manufacturing industry, they have mostly conceptualized it as a behaviors. And main purpose of measuring IWP is actually for communication purposes, that is to communicate how competent employees in delivering required performance. Frequency of measuring individual performance is mostly static. All three industries actually go for annual appraisals. Annually they measure, but manufacturing marks some exception. And there are some disparity between practices and expectations, but mostly people expect to measure both behaviors and results, which is not the case when it comes to the practice. And let me summarize the findings. So mainly individual work performance was conceptualized as capacity to keep producing desired outcomes. So which is actually a futuristic and predictive criteria. So let me define individual work performance in terms of different industries. So construction defined individual work performance as static capacity to keep producing desired behaviors. Manufacturing dynamic capacity to keep producing desired behaviors with both information and development purposes. And IT industry has static capacity to keep.
You have 2 minutes more.
Right. So as you can see, there are some disparities between popular theories and the practice. So which can be the case, which can be a potential cause for poor performance management practices. So according to Koopmans et al., so if you have the right practice, so it gives rise to right measures and the effectiveness. So we propose more and more future research on finding the right mix of behaviors and results and the different purposes. So this is the model that I came up with based on the findings. So behaviors can be defined as a task, mental and physical effort put to a task, influenced by mass factors. So we can use behaviors, results, mental and physical effort, motivation, and ability to measure performance. And capacity is the construct that I came up with in this research. So here, all these behaviors and results, they were all past-oriented, but capacity is more or less future-oriented, which is actually a good trend. And so these are the other domains of individual work performance. There are some certain limitations, like this model could be further statistically validated. These are the references that I use in this research. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Okay, Gunathilake, it's a very interesting presentation. Before I give my comments, I would like to open the forum to the audience. If you have any questions, you can raise now. And keep in your mind, like we have only 5 minutes for Q&A. Okay. Apparently, the audience is silent.
Excuse me, Amila Miss,
Yeah.
Dinesh.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
Dinesh, go ahead, please.
Yes, Tarendu, I think very interesting presentation. And I have one clarification, like you were talking about this exploratory investigation. It's very interesting, but you talk about like you are having pragmatic assumptions and you are having deductive approach. And also you are having quantitative 150 and you are having in-depth interviews as well. You talk about how many like you interviewed, like in addition to your quantitative survey questionnaire, how many you interviewed in depth. And the other thing is how did you perform the analysis, this qualitative analysis, whether it's a thematic narrative analysis or whether you see your quantitative data, you look at the factor analysis and you look at the emerging factor structure. I think it's more important, I think, in your title also. Any comment?
I didn't actually do factor analysis. What I did was I did a thematic analysis. First, of course, priority was given for qualitative analysis. Where I have interviewed I had 5 in-depth interviews and 5 focus group discussions where 10 people were there in each group. So based on the qualitative analysis, I have come up with some definitions. The themes and patterns were identified, and based on that, I have prepared the questionnaire. And this, and then 150 questionnaires were distributed among people from all 3 industries. So then this quantitative analysis was done to support the findings made from the qualitative analysis. And why I call this research as a based on deductive approach is because I have used already developed theories and practices which constitutes the basis of this research. So the primarily I try to understand how people define and interpret this individual work performance construct, because depending on their understanding, they select the measuring instruments, and their whole performance management system and their approach towards that, their practices, everything determines based on their understanding of this construct. So what interested me to come up.
Yes, Arindu. Yes, I understand. As a manager, I think that would have been more important to you, but from a theoretical and analytical perspective, had you perform fact analysis and look at the emerging practice structure also, I think it's more, insightful. That's my comment. Anyway, I think practically you look at. Thank you.
Yes, I am actually given that as a future research research insight.
Okay, yeah, Gunathilake, I think I do agree with Dr. Dinesh as well. In fact, would you mind going to your research questions or objective that you have presented? And
Yes,
that is the one thing is the area what you have picked up, it's something very timely important. And the way that you're presenting it's really fine, but that fundamental the weakness is there because as Dr. Dinesh rightly mentioned.
Yes, ma'am.
Now your objective, you're saying that the compare and contrast this.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Secondary objective. One thing, madam, because of the time factor.
You can hear me. Can you hear me, Gunathilake? Yeah, then just wait.
Madam, I can't hear you now.
I give the comments and after that you can start talking. And
yes, madam.
Use a quantitative approach, and for which objective it's qualitative. And since basically your main purpose is exploring this concept as a new concept or a new model, so the way that you have explored, I mean, the analysis process should be a little bit more clarity should bring into the presentation. And also like why it is this much of interviews, for which objectives, and why it's this much of the questionnaire for survey, and then it is for which objectives. So likewise, what you have done, you have to align with your research objectives. So I think you can consider that one for the future work if you are going to continue this one. Okay, then I hope the time it's over. So do you have anything to ask from us in terms of clarification, or else we can go for the next presenter?
Right, yes, madam. I have actually noted your comment that this objectives need to be aligned with the analysis, which I will do. I will pursue this domain in the future as well in my research. So then I will definitely consider.
So then that fundamentals you can address as Dr. Dinesh mentioned.
Okay. Small comment, madam. I have found some disparities of the practices and the theory and such.
That you can explore out and say that this is what the practice says, this is what the theory says, and then how you are going to align those two and what you are saying. So that's become your contribution. That's absolutely fine. Normally the theory won't practice as it is, and the practice may not 100% aligned theory, but as the scholarly work, you have to get the support from the theory to back the practice.
There are, madam, some fundamental errors of the way people conceptualize this understanding.
Yeah, that's why your rationalization, it's absolutely fine. But we were talking about like the way that you have achieved the objective. That is the place where you have to make a little bit of improvements. But anyway, it's nice, nice effort, and hope you will have courage to go ahead with this project. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And the next presenter, Supun Muthukuda, you will be presenting under the title of the impact of supply chain visibility of organic food on consumers' purchase intention. So it's time, it's over to you.
Good morning, madam. Am I audible? Good morning, madam. Am I audible?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yes, you are audible.
I hope you can see my screen as well.
Yes, you can go ahead. I'm not quite sure whether it's clearly audible, unless otherwise if you start talking.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Supun and I'll be presenting our research the impact of supply chain stability on consumers' purchase intention of organic food. First, let me take you through a brief introduction to our research. And in the modern world, consumers can access many information just in seconds. But when it comes to certain products like organic food, consumers lack information. So, for example, a consumer of a fish product may want to know where the fish was caught, if it was caught in a sustainable manner, or if it was caught in an area where fishing is legal. Or let's take another example, a consumer of a fine wine bottle may want to know when the producers started making it, how long they stored the product in a store, and so on. So this is where the term supply chain visibility and supply chain transparency come to play. And the term basically means the information readily available to its users, and as Maduwanthi in 2011 stated that when the supply chain is transparent, the consumer's purchase intention can be influenced, and this is what basically led us research about the topic, the impact of supply chain visibility on consumers' purchase intention of organic food. The research objectives, talking about research objectives, primary objective was to identify the impact of supply chain visibility of organic food on consumers' purchase intention of organic food. And there were three secondary objectives. First, to identify the impact of quantity of information shared on consumers' purchase intention, identifying the impact of the accuracy of information shared on consumers' purchase intention, finally identifying the impact of timeliness of information shared on consumers' purchase intention. Those the dimensions of the information were based on its figure. The three dimensions were based on its figure. So talking about the significance of the study, the researchers identified that there is a lack of information available to consumers in organic food, and since there's not much information available to consumers can face perceived risks like health risk and environmental risks and so on. So, and last but not least, consumers' purchase intentions can be impacted by the information available to them. So they'll make their purchase decision based on the information available to them. Talking about a little bit of this feature, supply chain transparency and visibility, that which I previously mentioned, the term basically means the information readily available to its users. And supply chain transparency relies on information sharing, as in 2010, Kandy and its authors mentioned that supply chain visibility can be measured in three dimensions, which I mentioned in our research objectives: quantity of information shared, the accuracy of information shared, and the timeliness of information shared. And purchase intention and supply chain visibility has a relationship between both terms, and consumers actually want to know whether a product is made using organic methods of production, or actually if the farmers do use the carbonic fertilizers and so on. If they do not get the information in the right manner, or if they do not get the information at all, they'll doubt their safety and their health, which I clearly mentioned as the first risk. So knowledge about problems come to play, and the term means the consumers want to know how products were produced, manufactured, stored, and delivered throughout the supply chain to their hands. And talking about our research design, we adopted the positivist philosophy since we are talking about the relationship between the supply chain visibility and the consumer purchase intention. So then we follow the deductive approach since we are researching about an already existing theory. And we followed a mono-method quantitative research method as our methodological choice. And in the data collection process, we actually used an online questionnaire to collect data. So looking at the conceptual model, you can see the three dimensions which describes supply chain visibility are the independent variables here: quantity of information shared, accuracy of information shared, and handiness of information shared. And then we have the purchase intention of consumer of organic food as the outcome variable. Hypotheses were developed based on conceptual model. Hypothesis 1, the quantity of information shared will influence the consumer's purchase intention. Hypothesis 2, accuracy of information shared will influence the consumer's purchase intention. Hypothesis 3, timeliness of information shared will influence the consumer's purchase intention. Data collection, we shared our online questionnaire between 400 potential respondents in the Western Province, and the population we selected was the consumers that have bought, are currently buying, and are the potential customers of organic food in Sri Lanka. So the sample method we used was convenient sampling, and the questionnaire was distributed, and we were able to collect 212 responses from the questionnaire, and it was deducted to 173 responses after the data screening process. So the reliability for the variables were tested using count by alpha value, and value for purchase intention, quantity of information shared, accuracy of information shared were very acceptable, and the value for timeliness information shared were also satisfactory level to move forward. And talking about demographic information of the data we collected, 68.2% of the respondents were from Colombo, and almost 65% of the respondents were females, and 70.5% were aged between 21 to 30. So talking about sufficiency of information and required information, as per the data which we collected, the respondents have mentioned they actually get the information about price, product name, weight, and manufacturer details, and they clearly mentioned that the consumers lack nutrition information, and the reliability of the information they doubt the reliability of the information. So required information, as the respondent mentioned,
You have 2 minutes more.
They want to know origin of the product shelf life, how the products were handled and transported throughout the supply chain. And in the model testing, we used ordered logic regression model, and the Natal curve R-star value is 0.569, which is 56.9 variants of the outcomes that suggested the outcome of the variable is having an impact on the independent variable. And in the conclusion, we can say an increase in the quantity of information shared and the dimension of information shared will actually have an impact on the consumer's purchase intention of organic food. And when the information about organic food is provided at the right time and when it's up to date, the purchase intention of the consumers will increase. Also the recommendations for the research, we can actually mention that the findings of the research can serve as base for the research, not only for organic food, but also fast-moving consumer goods and other products. And further studies can be conducted in order to provide or recommend technology that can help enhance the visibility of supply chain, such as blockchain technology, IoT, and RFID tags, and so on. So that brings up to the conclusion of my presentation. Thank you.
I'll the discussions to the forum.
So apparently no questions from the audience. So I'll give my comments and question. The one thing, Supun, as an undergraduate student, the effort what you have put forward, it's really appreciating. And we'll have a few areas that you can take into consideration when you are developing as a young scholar. One thing is you are focusing on like the supply chain visibility. How does it impact on the purchase intention? So you have taken consumer's perspective. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah. So where you are saying that you have used the deductive approach with the three aspects of visibility, quantity, accuracy, and the timeliness. So it's better if you can operationalize those ones with more rigor. If you presented the scales, have you used the scales that's already been developed by previous scholars for the supply chain visibility?
Yes.
It would have been better if you have correctly mentioned, okay, this is how this purchase intention as well as the supply chain visibility being operationalized, since you are purely in the deductive approach. And the one of the main fundamental thing that you have to address is you have done the reliability testing, but not the validity. So that though you are using somebody else's scale, you have to validate within the context that you are using it. That means now you are using it in Sri Lankan context to organic food. So within that context, with your sample, you have to validate the scales. So where you have to go ahead with the fact analysis and those ones. Have you done it, or you have done it and but not presenting today, or you haven't done? All right. Okay. Okay. So in the future, you have to think about the improvement from that side as well. Different aspects of validity is there, so that you have to take care on all these things. And even in your reliability for timeliness, the value is quite low. It's like 0.581 something. So sometimes you can fix it up once you have gone with the validation of the measurement scales, probably. So you can improve a little bit this one. And a small thing which I would like to ask from you, in your sample, it's predominantly the people, those who are in the age category of 20 to 30 or 21 to 30. Am I right? Yes. Almost like 71% of your sample is in that age group. So do you, is there a special reason for you to be the mainly taking the sample from that? Because okay, do you have an answer for it?
Yeah, well, because we actually shared the question about on sampling, so we shared one of our friends, so basically that's the reason to get those response from the
okay, since you have gone with the convenience sampling, isn't it? Okay, so that is the one of the weaknesses, because now we are talking about the organic food. So we are not quite sure whether the respondents are having financial capability. Are they the real decision makers to their family whenever they are going for organic food purchases? So that weakness is there in your study. And why? What make you to run a logic regression?
Madam, basically the questionnaire we prepared the practically the questions which we made are very ordinary questions.
Okay, it's better you like read little bit more on the different kind of regression techniques, because depending on the nature of the data, so nature of the variables, we have to pick up the right regression model. So whether you are using scale variable for both the independent and dependent, so there is one method. So likewise, read little bit on the regression so that you will hopefully will get those ones in the future. Okay, it's nice as undergraduate. Your effort is really appreciated, and keep on going. And one day you will become a good researcher.
Thank you very much, Thank you very much.
Now it's time for the third presenter. So which is Nilanta Akurugoda, who has worked on the studying the issues facing in the commercial bank branch operational related fraud management. So Nilanta, you can go ahead with your presentation.
Right. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm Nilanta. I'm a banker by profession. And I'm an associate member of the Institute of Bankers Sri Lanka. Currently, I'm working for National Development Bank as a manager, group audit. Today, my presentation is studying the issues of branch banking operational related fraud management. This was the research which I have carried out for my MSc. Before I move on to the research in detail, I would like to give a brief introduction about the banking industry. Banks mainly mobilize the financial resources of a country and canalize these financial resources into productive lines of investment. So mobilizing and canalizing, these are the two main functions of a bank. What mainly the industry does is we get funds from the surplus units, and then we distribute these funds to the deficit units in order to accelerate the development process in a country. Therefore, this banking industry can be considered as the backbone of any economy. And the banking, where the banking industry is concerned, this is a very highly sensitive industry for frauds. And the key word in this industry is trust. And collapsing of one bank may result in collapsing other banks in the industry, which will have very serious repercussions to the entire economy. Having said to have very serious repercussions to the entire economy, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, regulates the banking industry, and there is a separate unit at Central Bank that is called the Bank Supervision Department. They supervise the activities of commercial banks very closely. So this is a highly regulated industry. Having said that, bank branch operational related frauds, this is very common in the industry. Despite the fact of having a robust internal controlling system, state-of-art driven high technology operational risk management systems, then the separate audit departments with the well-experienced and qualified professionals, and then the HR department where there are highly qualified and the professional in the field of HR. So having this sort of environment, still the branch related frauds, operational related frauds happen at branches. And when this HR department recruits staff to banks, we have a rigorous process during the recruitment. We screen the staff members very carefully. We call the trip reports, then we take police reports, then thereafter the family background is checked, the school leaving certificates, So after rigorous process only, we recruit staff to a bank. But still, there are dishonest staff members in branches where they could play havoc with because the banks are using other people's money, not the bank's own funds. So these staff members play havoc with these other people's funds. So in this banking jargon, we call this frauds, insider frauds, or we called it bankers' bunks, that is the banking jargon. So in my study, I have identified a study gap. The actual state is there are frauds happening in branches, especially in the operational related areas. But the desired state is, as I mentioned earlier, when there are robust internal controlling systems, when there are state-of-art driven, technology-driven operational risk management units, and when there are qualified people in the audit departments, and when there are separate HR departments in banks, where they continuously try to embed an ethical criteria to the banking sector, why these frauds are happening. So that is a research gap that I have identified during this study. Accordingly, I have developed 4 research objectives for the study. One is to explore the internal control gaps, breakdowns, weaknesses. Now, these are the opportunities in branches where a fraudulent staff member can commit a fraud. And then to identify what is the proper operational risk mechanism in order to combat the branch banking operational related frauds. And then how
Nilantha, sorry to interrupt you. Nilantha, sorry to interrupt you. Your slides doesn't move. Okay, now it start moving. Okay. Okay,
then,
go ahead.
These are the research objectives. So how HR could assist, how the HR could assist the business line, that is the first line of defense, in order to combat these branch operational related frauds by embedding an ethical criteria to branch bank networks, and how these audit methodologies, when we say audit methodologies, there are several audit methodologies like risk-based audits, then we have cycle-based audits, then we have strategic audits. So I wanted to find out what is the best method of doing audits in order to minimize or eliminate frauds in branch operations. Accordingly, I have carried out an in-depth literature review. In this literature review, I have read previously carried out researches in the areas of frauds, internal controls, then operational risk management, and how HR could embed ethical criteria to branches. So I have carried out a literature review, and I have read certain articles, journals, and previously carried out researches in order to gather an understanding and in-depth knowledge about this research area. Accordingly, I have developed my conceptual framework. In the conceptual framework, I have identified 4 independent variables, that is the internal controls, operational risk management, internal audit methodologies, and the final one is staff ethical behavior and ethical orientation of human resource management. Whether these are having an impact to the dependent variable, how this will affect the dependent variable of branch operational related frauds. So accordingly, I have prepared my conceptual framework. This is the conceptual framework of my research. Accordingly, I have developed the operationalization variables. And there I have identified the concepts, variables, indicators, and attributes in order to develop the research questionnaire.
You have 2 minutes more.
Right, okay. Then this is a mixed approach. The study is a mixed approach where there is a quantitative part as well as a qualitative part. For the quantitative, I have selected 10 respondents from all commercial banks in the country. And for the qualitative part, I have selected only 5 that I have carried out a thematic analysis in the qualitative. Actually, I wanted to back my quantitative findings by the qualitative thematic analysis. That's what my intention. For the quantitative analysis, I have used data analytical tool SPSS 22. Under that, I have carried out univariate analysis, bivariate, reliability analysis, factor analysis, and finally parameter analysis. And the main findings of my research is, according to the parameter estimate, it was evidence that the operational risk management is the most significant independent variable to the dependent variable, that is branch operational related frauds, where there is a inversely related by minus 0.832 odds with a significance level of P.034. And again, according to the parameter estimate, the second most independent variable is the staff HR efforts, staff ethical behavior and ethical orientation of HR, where there was a inverse relationship again, minus 0.599 odds with a significant level of P045. And when I narrow down further my parameter estimates to the variables,
10 minutes over.
Okay.
Please,
I have seen this self risk and control assessment. This is the most significant variable to my dependent variable of fraud management at branches. So therefore,
okay, Nilantha. Yeah, Nilantha, that's fine. Yeah. So we'll handle the remaining part along with the questions. Let me open the forum for the questions. Audience, if you have anything, you can ask from Mr. Nilantha.
Yes, Mr. Nilantha, I think very interesting presentation and very timely, I think. I have few clarification, like third objective you say to assist the management, but I think such objective is not required in the research, but it can be some practical implications, I think. That is one view. And how did you operationalize the things? What are the scales you use to measure these things? I have one clarification about that. And in addition to that, 2 hypotheses were rejected, no? I think your alternative hypothesis were rejected. Any justification, like only 2 were accepted, no? Your alternative hypothesis.
Yes. Now, first question is this assisting. Now, actually, this is an applied research where I have tried to give now this the findings and the recommendations of this research can be directly applied to branch in order to minimize the frauds in branch operations. Where I have identified this risk and control self-assessment. If this is strong in branches, then the branch operational related frauds can be minimized by identifying the opportunities well in advance by the operational risk management. That was the main finding of the research. So since this is applied research, I thought of putting this ethical part as assisting the business lines, not the management, the business line. That is the front line, first line of defense, in order to combat or in order to face the challenges of identifying the risk areas, the emerging opportunities of dishonest staff member to commit a fraud. So that's how I have said this objective. Where the hypotheses are concerned, it was established. Now, I have only presented, since this is a 10-minute presentation, I have only presented the first most significant, but other 2 things are also, there is an inverse relationship to the fraud management. Now, when you take the internal audit, yes, I have there are 2 variables I have discussed: the risk-based audits and the cycle-based audit. And I found that these 2 equally, help to minimize branch operational related frauds. And then the first part, the internal control. That is also, there's even the internal controls are strong in a branch, then there is a possibility of eliminating the fraud.
So can you please go to that result that you're telling that these ones also like inversely important, that regression results table? I do agree with Dr. Dinesh. So the comment like, yes, that's true. This is action-based research where you have an intention of giving some recommendation, but even if that is, it is not that important or not that necessary to put it as an objective, because anyway, at the end of any action-oriented research or the applied research,
I have not put it as an objective. Actually, the third objective was set in order to consider see the possibilities or analyze the possibilities of how.
I can understand your intention, but we are saying that as the scholars, even though it is not there, it doesn't handicap the value of your study. Okay, and then it's very interesting if you're looking at the fraud prevention policy, and then the selecting right caliber of the staff. So which is doesn't have. So what do you have any reason behind it? Because since you are the practitioner, you are a banker who is in this field, and the area what you have picked up is something not common. So it's very interesting area. So we would like to know what would be the reason behind of being these two not significant, specifically the fraud prevention policy. That means it doesn't make any sense. And also
anything now. We are talking about the real business world. The academic concepts, yes, but this is some sort of a professional approach has to be given. That's what now this fraud prevention policy is just a policy. It's just a policy. The document where these the banks have, but it doesn't give any meaning. Now, when you take the risk and self-control assessment, this is a living document. This is a living thing. The HR effort is a living thing. So this has to be, some sort of an action. Mere policies, procedures will not help in order to prevent operational-related problems. Because this is happening in the counter level. So yes,
so how about the selection? Yes, Dinesh.
Mr. as Professor Amila mentioned, I think you can't generalize this to the industry since you have selected only NDB bank. No, I think
No, in my sample now, so I have carried out the research like this. Now my sample size is 100. 100 I have selected from covering all the commercial banks in Sri Lanka.
Not only NDB.
Not only the NDB. No. If I select,
but
yes,
you say in your article, you say in your article NDB. In your article, you say NDB bank you selected and its branches. Then there's a contradiction. What you say?
So that's also I had the intention. This is only focused for the NDBs since it's having just 100 employees. So I was looking at your study with that perspective. Even though it is only for NDB, that doesn't matter.
It says.
I think the paper I have.
In the bull paper, it says only NDB.
There's a small correction. Yeah,
I was reading your paper.
Yeah, there's a small correction. I think I have to do that.
So because then the entire perspective would be different.
Yes, this came when I was doing my Viva voice also it came. Then after that I did that correction. No, it's not from the NDB. It's from the entire banking industry.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Mainly I have targeted the second officers who are directly responsible at any bank. The assistant managers, they are responsible for the day-to-day operational activity.
No, Nilanta, it doesn't matter. Like the only thing is whenever you are selecting a sample, your results you have to interpret in that context. That's the only thing. So no matter whether you are taking the banking industry or else you are limiting into the NDB, it's okay. Then it's determined where you are scaling your interpretation. So all in nutshell, for me, it sounds like the practices are more important than the the policies or the selections. That's what basically in your study you are trying to showcase to the audience. If you can improve the little bit by having considered those comments that's being given by myself and Dr. Dinesh. So you have put forward and also congratulate, and also it's good that you have selected interesting, and some more comments are there, but since the time it's over, I think we have to go for the other one. Okay.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and this was supervised by Dr. U.G. Rajapaksha of management faculty. Thank you very much to him also. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for presenting that. Then we have the next presenter, Nisansala Maduwanthi. Nisansala, you are focusing on the impact of the gender and the location on career indecision, the special reference to Sri Lankan state universities.
Yes, ma'am.
It's over to you. You can start your presentation. 10 minutes for the presentation and the 5 minutes for Q&A. Keep that in your mind.
Professor ma'am, we are going to showing the video because
I see it.
We are going to play the video, but she's available for Q&A.
All right, that's absolutely fine. So then let's
since I have a small health issue, I asked to play.
That's fine. That's absolutely
fine.
We
are going to do this, Ansala.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Today I am going to present my study on the Good morning, everyone. Today I am going to present my study on the impact of gender and location on career indecision. Special reference to Sri Lankan state universities. My paper ID is 126. I am MN Maduwanthi, Department of Human Resource Management, Faculty of Management and Finance, University of Brunei. Today I am going to present this outline with my presentation. So first of all, I want to move into the background of the study, the context of the study. So career indecision has been seen as one of the essential and focal areas of career psychology. So most researchers revealed career decision-making related problems are leading to a rise career indecision. Career indecision is a negative status that refers to an inability to select a career goal or experience significant feeling of uncertainty about the goal. So career indecision is not a good state, a good condition for a successful professional or successful career. So when it comes to the graduates passing out from state universities are being considered as a significant resource, which would benefit the overall economy of the country in long run. So the Sri Lankan government is spending a huge amount of money on behalf of the higher education with the objective of having some return from them in order to develop, in order to uplift the Sri Lankan economy. So when it comes to the context of management undergraduates, record a significant percentage. It's around 20% from total Sri Lankan undergraduates, and it has gradually risen according to the university's admission handbook. So, a career indecision is a complex issue among many university undergraduates according to the empirical and the literature evidences. So, researcher identified the research gap as follows. This phenomenon has been explored by many researchers throughout several decades, mainly to identify key factors contributing to the career indecision among various individuals in Western context. So lack of compatibility would be due to the vast differences in cultural settings, demographics, and economic aspects in developed and developing contexts. So it is really difficult to compare Sri Lankan context with the developing and developed context due to these discrepancies. So no previous scholarly work has dealt with the phenomena of career indecision concerning gender and university location in the context of Sri Lankan state universities. So when it comes to the problem justification, according to the statistical data on unemployment trends, we can see the females' unemployment rate is somewhat higher than the male unemployment rate. So when analyzing the above statistic, it is apparent that unemployment rates have either varied very little or risen. So these two could be considered as proof of an impending issue about career indecision among young adults, which then leads to the lack of economic development of the country. So career indecision hampers not only the personal advancement of the job seeker, but also undermines the expansion of national economy. When considering the graduate unemployment rate in Sri Lanka, it is 54.8 of art degrees and 45% two of other degrees were recorded according to the labor force survey in Sri Lanka. The number of graduates who are engaged in vital professions are far less than the number of graduates who are engaged in unimportant professions. So these unimportant professions means the non-value-added professions and less value-added professions. Most of the graduates are doing these kind of non-value-added or less value-added professions according to the practical evidence. So these these non-value-added or less value-added positions were created in order to find solutions to the problem of graduate unemployment. So the country's economy gains very little from them, where the other professionals' contribution is immense. So the expectation of government may lose as a result of this career indecision and career indecisive nature. So the poor female, when it comes to the gender, the poor female labor force participation rate in Sri Lanka does not necessarily mean that it is attributed due to the indecisive nature of making career decisions. It could be mostly due to the other more pressing social and cultural constraints. So, but then again, it is well documented that there are some discrepancies when it comes to the career-related choices and decision-making among males and females. So, with regard to the geographical location of the state universities, it is common that there is a perception of provisions of all sort of facilities is higher within the universities located at close proximity to the city center. There is a perception of most of the people, they are perceiving that the graduates from the metropolitan university graduates are having high caliber than the rural university graduates. So that's the perception of most of the people. But when considering the university rankings, we can see both the rural universities and the urban universities are there in the ranking order. So that is why when considering the context, I can see some kind of discrepancies are there. So my research question is to identify whether there is any significant impact upon being career indecisive based on gender-wise segregation and physical location of the university. So in order to find out the quick solution for that question, I have developed this research objective to explore the significance on career indecision among management undergraduates in the state universities in Sri Lanka based on gender-wise segregation and physical location of the university. So these are my hypotheses. First hypothesis is the student being a male or female has a significant impact on career being career indecisive. Then hypothesis 2, the geographical location of the university has a significant impact on career indecisive. So, when it comes to the methodology, is one of the most important part of the study. So, research design is descriptive research design. Management faculties of Sri Lankan state universities are the research side. Then the population, all management undergraduates in Sri Lankan state universities, in state universities. When it comes to the sample, 345 final year management undergraduates from the state universities like University of Ruhuna, Sri Jayarathne, Colombo and Sabragamu. So these 4 universities categorized into 2 main categories such as rural and metropolitan universities based on the proximity to the city center. So convenient sampling method was used. Then data collection method, the both primary and secondary was used. When it comes to primary, self-administered questionnaire as per 5-point Likert scale, and secondary university handbook, annual reports, and from the Department of Census and Statistics were used. When it comes to the analytical methods, mean value, independent sample t-test was used. So these are the findings of my study. When it comes to the demographic variables, high female participation was there. Then somewhat high metropolitan university participation was there. So when considering the independent sample t-test results, I wanted to test my hypothesis based on the independent sample t-test results. When considering the impact upon gender, according to the mean value, we can see there is a difference. High mean value for male. So there is some kind of clue that males are high indecisive in nature. So researcher wanted to test the significance of that higher indecisive nature. So in order to test the significance, researcher used independent sample t-test according to the equal variance not assumed table. It is 0.17. So my first hypothesis is supported. It means there is a significant impact on career indecisive based on the gender. So when considering my second hypothesis, impact upon location, we can see there is a difference between the mean values of rural and metropolitan. So researcher wanted to test this difference is significant or not. In order to test the significance level, researcher conducted independent sample t-test. According to the findings, both values are greater than 0.05. It means my second hypothesis is not supported. So these are the hypothesis results, hypothesis testing results. First hypothesis was supported and second one is not supported. So this is the conclusion of my study. Career indecisiveness was higher among males, and at the same time there is a significant impact of the gender on the career indecision. Then when it comes to the geographical location of the state universities was provided to be insignificant in terms of being career indecisive. So the third one, when it comes to the findings, it would be beneficial to the undergraduates, policymakers, and government institutions, as well as for the society at large. When it comes to the devising human resource development programs related to the this context and the related policies. So that is the end of my presentation. These are the key references that I have used. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, Nisansala. So you have selected one of the important areas. It's basically relevant to the university education. So we'll keep some time for the audience to ask questions or give comments. The forum is open for the discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Maduwanthi. I have 2 questions. One is like you are having a very broader macro level problem you are talking about. It's about male-female comparison at the macro level. But I don't know why you selected university students for this one. Why this broader macro level thing you look at in the university context? That is one question. And the other thing is, what's your operational or the particular specific definition for career indecision, right? What is that? And those are first 2 questions I have. Can you I think understand what I say, Miss Maduwanthi?
Yes, I can understand. When it comes to first question, I have select the final year undergraduates because they are forwarding to the industry in the most recent manner. So when it comes to the level of career indecision, I wanted to identify whether they have selected their career related goal or not. When considering the University of Brunei, I have experience regarding the University of Brunei students. So I got the initiation to check whether what kind of intention is there regarding the career. So when I dealing with them, I saw some kind of indecisive nature was there. Why they do not have any idea about what is their future area, what is their future focus, and whether they are going to do some the professional works or anything. What is the industry? So some kind of the indecisive nature was there. So I wanted to test. I wanted to test these areas with the other universities and all. So that's why I have used 4 universities in order to do this comparison and all. When it comes to the second question, so career indecision is a inability to select particular career goal, and the particular student or the particular person is unable to define their goal. That's called the career indecisive.
Yes, Miss Maduwanthi, the other thing is in your independent sample t-test, career indecision, males one is high. It's significant difference, male and female. The male's mean value is higher than female. But in a macro level data to explain the broader issue in the country, female unemployment is higher than male unemployment. I see there's a mismatch. So why is that? What's the justification? What's the rationale?
Yes, I think unemployment rates are dealing with the entire country, but when it comes to undergraduates level, that's the result. So I use that macro level details in order to prove there is the question regarding the career indecision. That's why I used it.
I think Professor Amila might have further thoughts on this. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Dinesh, I do agree with all your comments and the questions, and that some of the questions, in fact, you have already asked. The Maduwanthi, the main thing, while appreciating your effort by taking out this kind of issue into this forum, the main thing which really make my mind into a dilemma, why it is indecisive. So how we are representing that macro level picture from the undergraduates. So that is what I think the concerns of Dr. Dinesh also. And the indecisiveness, so you have to nicely operationalize. That part is missing because you have used basically deductive approach, but the definition of it, you have a definition. So now you are explaining from the words, but it should be something you are taking from a scholarly world, and then it needs to be nicely operationalized. Have you thought about those ones, or you have not brought it up to the presentation, or you have already done it? Any comments for it,
Yes,
Maduwanthi?
I have already done it, madam, since I did some kind of large research regarding the factors affecting the career indecision. So I have separated these factors from this part, and I got the gender and the location part. That's why I think it's missed, madam. Sorry for that.
Yeah, how about the operationalization? Have you operationalized that career indecisiveness? From
yes,
I
used I used 3-dimensional scales regarding the aspects of self-efficacy, the career counseling opportunities, and in terms of the poverty and one
so
was
those
there.
Are very, yeah, so they are very broad thing once again. So because poverty itself, it's a very broader concept. So you have to careful on those ones. And also, I'm not happy with the answer that you have given to the questions raised by Dr. Dinesh. So let me ask it again. And now your findings as the undergraduate, the students taking it as a proxy to represent the society. Now you are saying that gender matters, but the male value is higher than the female value. But in the context, which is not the case. So what would be the reason behind it, as you think?
because of the cultural setting of I think it's because of the cultural settings of the Sri Lanka, since less career, more career indecisive males are there, but because of the economic problems and all, males have to do any kind of job when comparing to the females. So because they have family responsibility, they are the dominant party in the family in Sri Lankan context. Anyway, they have to perform any kind of job. Since they are indecisive, they have to do that kind of profession. I think that is the thing.
Yeah, so if that is the case, you have to investigate it and see whether what you are thinking is correct or not. And
yes,
also,
madam, sure.
and also like in the other variable, you have taken the location where you have segregated into two, the metropolitan one and the rural one. And your findings, independent sample t-test says that it's less than more than 0.05, but that means at 95% significant level, it is not significant, but at the 90% it is. So how you segregate the sample into this metropolitan and rural?
Because of the proximity to the city center, madam.
No, I mean like the percentage out of your sample, how many respondents represent from the metropolitan and how many from the rural?
59.1 participants from the rural, 49.9, 49.9. Then another 50.1% from the metropolitan universities, madam. I think
it's also like 50.
Same. Yeah.
Okay, that is something that you have to think. And then at last, what you are telling to the society as an outcome from your study.
When considering the undergraduate context, they have to develop the decisive nature. Otherwise, we have to lose the significance investment for the future. So that's what I wanted to emphasize. So undergraduates have to think about these matters.
Okay. Yeah. So having said that, those the fundamentals you have to consider in the future work. So we congratulate for coming that idea into the forum. So let's go to the
Thank you very much, madam.
Okay. So let's go to the last presenter, who is Helene Fonseka.
Yes, madam.
Presenting on the role of environmental and psychological factors in assisting sustainable entrepreneurial performance of women in microfirms, based on Kandy district. Yeah, you can start.
Very good morning, Madam Chairperson, judges, and members of the audience. So our research is on the role of environmental and psychological factors in assisting sustainable entrepreneurial performance of women-led microfirms as a study based on Kandy district. So taking you through the main areas of concern, that will be the introduction, methodology, results, and the conclusion. Let me give you an insight on how the setting to the research came up. So our main point of concern was entrepreneurship, which we identified as the definition to be the practice of starting new organizations or revitalizing mature organizations in response to identified opportunities. So that being identified as entrepreneurship, we wanted to expand our horizon of thinking a bit in the viewpoint of entrepreneurship, and we identified sustainable entrepreneurship. So the definition of sustainable entrepreneurship was found out to be as the innovative actions that is taken in the business sector by different individuals and organizations who see environmental or social problems as a primary goal and competitive advantage. So identifying this, we realized that sustainable entrepreneurship could be a phenomenon that is that brings very much of importance and influence to the well-being of a country and hence the world. So to conduct this research on the matter of sustainable entrepreneurship, we have considered the women population in Sri Lanka. So if I say why we selected women in Sri Lanka, it's a stated fact in most of the sources that we have identified that women starting a business are more likely to agree with the motivation of making a difference to the world. So that being said, it's in other terms, more or less sustainability, because they tend to give something to the world while also carrying out their business operations. And also the other fact why we have considered Sri Lanka is that women are restrained in their economic enterprises and proceed to face unemployment as twice the rate of men. So this is basically due to various reasons of gender discrimination, social cultures, and the various repressions that they have in the society. So due to that, they face a lot of unemployment in the general situation. So with this, we have identified there exists a certain gap where the whole concerns together are not addressed. So that is how the women can improve themselves in sustainable entrepreneurial performance and giving back to the country and the world, while also having the issues of the unemployment and so on in the country. So why we conducted this research is to bring these two concerns in one platform and to bring up an insightful literature on this research gap that we have identified. So with that, we have identified the objectives is to examine the role of environmental and psychological factors in making the sustainable entrepreneurial performance of women-led microfirms in Kandy district, to identify the factors that increase this performance, and also to identify the challenges that women go through while handling microfirms, and also to suggest the ways that they can improve their performance in these firms. So moving to the methodology that we have incorporated in our research, we have employed a positivism philosophy along with a deductive approach where we have done the hypothesis testing by having telephoned questionnaires. So these surveys were conducted over the call where the researchers personally spoke to them over call and got their data and did the analysis in the quantitative means. So as for the cross-sectional time horizon, we've done it. The data collection and the population sample we've selected is as follows. So the population, what we selected is the women entrepreneurs in the Kandy district. So if I may say why we have chosen the Kandy district, that is because Kandy district is the 4th highest population district in the country where the majority is of women. So as per the Department of Census and Statistics, it's 52.01%. So that's a majority of women. And also considering the total number of establishments in the district, of that 90.65% are the microfirm establishments. So moving further into the categorization of the Kandy district itself, we found that there are 20 divisional secretariat areas. And according to the Women Development Officer in the Kandy district, we have 562 registered women entrepreneurs in the Kandy district. So since we're focusing on the microfirms to give more attention to the environmental and psychological factors that would affect their performance, how we have screened out the women who are owning microscale enterprises is for the fact that microfirms are defined as for the enterprises with the capital expenditure of less than 5 million rupees and with less than 10 employees and with less than 3 years of existence, and also in addition an annual turnover of less than 10 million rupees. So with that, the 562 registered women entrepreneurs were taken down to 528 women entrepreneurs. So to come up with a sample from that population, we have conducted stratified sampling to identify the sample from each area, each divisional secretariat area to be taken into account for the data collection. And after getting that sample, we have conducted the random sampling to get a sample of 228 women entrepreneurs in the Kandy district, from which we had a 92% response rate and had the respondents amount of 210. So these respondents were above the age of 18, and there were respondents who were above the age of 45 as well, and who have been educated in the primary levels as well as to the graduate level, which was sort of a minority, and also who were mostly married and had 4 to 5 people, members in their family. So moving to the important points on the conceptual framework. So we have considered environmental factors and psychological factors as our main variables, which we have categorized into sub-variables as seen on the screen as social perception, opportunities for green entrepreneurship, and so on for both the factors as we have considered. So after that, we have also found several measures that we have taken in order to evaluate the sustainable entrepreneurial performance. So this performance is based on the current green practice, financial performance, non-financial performance. So these measures have been found out in past scholars for both the dependent and the independent variables. The past scholarly articles, we've done operationalization and we've identified that the Likert scale has been used. And for the dependent variable, we've incorporated these measures in our questionnaire so that they can directly develop their answers according to what we request. And the hypothesis based on the variables we have is as follows. So there's quite a few hypotheses, so I would not take time to read one by one. And moving on to the results that we got. So this is basically the most important results that we have taken forward in developing our analysis. So according to the reliability test, we understood that except green attitudes and optimism, all the other question groups were found to be reliable. So green attitudes and optimism was the issue that we found there. And according to the validity, we saw that it was valid and that the factor analysis could be headed further. And we also presumed that there could be a relationship between these variables, which we assumed while studying for the research, and then found out through the sources as well, but needed to confirm through our research itself. So with that, we have moved on to the descriptive statistics. And for that, we have also found that almost all the variables are highly important, while the opportunities for green entrepreneurs, training support, teamwork, government support, innovation, and leadership was at a lower level of importance while considered with the others. And with the correlation and regression analysis done, and the final results came in as you can see on the slide. So we have sub-variables related to sustainable entrepreneurial performance as for the main and the highly significant factors as
have 2 minutes more.
Analytical planning, innovation, perceived behavioral control, opportunities for green entrepreneurship, business environment, social perception. So with that, we have also developed the relationship for the main variables, which is the main objective of our study, to identify the relationship between psychological and environmental factors to our sustainable entrepreneurial performance. So according to the relationship that we brought, we have found out that there is a significant relationship, and these are positively related to the sustainable entrepreneurial performance as we wanted to study in the relationship. So as for the conclusion, so out of the 13 sub-variables that we have taken into consideration, opportunities for green entrepreneurship and training support had no relationship to the sustainable entrepreneurial performance according to the data collected and analyzed. And also the other independent variables had positive relationships. And if we consider on both environmental and psychological factors, so social perception, proactiveness, teamwork, these factors had moderately positive correlation, while analytical planning had a high positive correlation with our dependent variable. And the psychological factors, green attitudes, perceived behavioral control, these factors had a strong positive relationship, while optimism showed a weak positive relationship. So all in all, the conclusion that we have brought out from the research is that environmental and psychological factors do play a positive role in assisting the sustainable entrepreneurial performance for the women-led microfirms. And as for the limitations of the study, however, even though we have come to a conclusion that we would have expected, the limitations is that we have only considered the women entrepreneurs who are above 18 years of age, with the limitation to the Kandy district. And if that is explained further, that was due to the current pandemic situation that prevailed, that is prevailing now, as well as prevailed when we were in this process of data collection as well. So even we have the inability of physically approaching these the sample, we had to contact them over call and get their data. So these being the limitations of the study, we have also come up with future directions for research and recommendations as for the fact that these limitations can be gapped if the research is taken forward while considering a larger population and a larger part of the country to take forward with the consideration of sustainable entrepreneurial performance, and also with the fact that we identified things like government support and analytical planning, these being very important factors in sustainable entrepreneurial performance. We believe that incentives, programs, workshops, even though it's not exactly training support in order to conduct a business, there could be workshops in how we give how we present different situations, and we give the things that women entrepreneurs would need to consider in times of hardship. So with that being said, these are the references that we have used, and also would thank everyone who has supported in making this research a success. That brings the end of my presentation.
Yeah, Helene, it's sustainable entrepreneurship, one of the important topic for the Sri Lankan context, especially with respect to the female generation. So before I give my questions and the comments, I would like to open the discussion for the forum. The audience, you can ask any questions from her.
Yes, Ms. Kelani and the team, I think very interesting and comprehensive presentation. I should congratulate first. I have few clarification of the comments. First one is like from your analysis, like you have done a correlation analysis, but you talk about the relationship. But my advice is better to go for a multiple regression, and you can have a more comprehensive analysis, like what is the most important factor, you can order them. I think that is one comment. And the other thing is like you are having about, I think 15 hypotheses, no? And you have looked at the dependent variable as the triple bottom line dimensions, no? Like people, profit, and the planet. But I like if you can do a regression, and even you can compare these dependent variables also having totally different dimensions, like some are objective, some are non-objective performance measures. Then have you done any other advanced analysis for this?
According to what we have done so far, it's basically as Sir Dinesh mentioned, it's not like we haven't mostly focused on objective and subjective. We haven't actually categorized that far. We had just taken all of them in whole and conducted the analysis.
Yes, I think Amila Madam would provide you more insights. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Dr. Dinesh, thank you so much for your very valuable comment. And in fact, at the outset, I had to tell you, Helani, so the effort what you have taken as an undergraduate student, it's really appreciated. Because your study is very comprehensive, the way that you have selected the sample and the respondents, that's really good. But I do have some concern because the way that you have drafted, one of the things, because I have jotted down while you are making the presentation, the way that you have drafted your research question doesn't indicate that your study is a deductive one. Okay. So that you have to be careful a little bit on when it's come to wordings.
Okay.
And also your conceptual framework, it looks very cluttered, like you have the lot of independent variables and the dependent variable, and within the dependent variable, so many categories are there. As Dr. Dinesh rightly mentioned, some are subjective, some are objective, so that you are going to investigate all, putting it into one basket. So, and having said on the other side, you're having only 221 the sample, but having if I'm not quite sure how you have operationalized these ones, because some of the variables, it's very broad, like innovativeness itself, it's very broad. And how many items are there under each of these variables? So when we are looking at the operationalization part, it looks quite doubtful how you get the result. Probably that would be one of the main reasons for you to inability to go for some kind of inferential statistic instead of simply sticking into your study into correlation analysis. You'd have to go for some other advanced inferential statistic, like at least the multiple regression, as Dr. Dinesh rightly mentioned. So you would have, apparently you have done in two sets, the one for environment and the other one for psychological factors. Have you done it in that way, or you have done all together?
It's all together.
So that is the question, because I'm having a doubt whether you have operationalized all the variables correctly. So that you have to think about. Have you operationalized all these variables with the support of the literature?
Yes, madam, we have.
So that's something I'm quite doubtful. And also the other one is, since you are having so many variables, you will have parsimony issue. Like you are trying to investigate all at once, so don't know how far that you are successfully doing it. So those ones you can think in the future. Unless otherwise, your data set, it's if you have rightly measured the concepts that you have already mentioned in the conceptual framework, so you can go for further analysis since your data set is representing the microform handling entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka. But of course, it has that fundamental issues. And one more thing, you have done only the factor analysis for validation. So factor analysis is just for the unidimensionality. So you have to think about the other form of validation of the measurement scales, like AV, CR. So likewise, the construct validity, discriminant validity, convergent validity. So those ones, think of reading those ones and see whether you can improve your work for the future in terms of if you are going ahead with the publication process. So as undergraduate, congratulate your work and hope you have a good future.
Thank you very much, Madam Amila.
I think that's the end of all the presentations. And I would like to thank the audience for asking questions, especially Dr. Dinesh, who have been a support to me for giving some interesting
Thank you, Amila
comments.
Madam, for interesting insights. I think we learn a lot, I think, from your insights. Thank you so much. I think you are not well as well. I appreciate. Anyway, you contributed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's my pleasure. And also the audience for being with this session, and also would like to thank the KDU. Despite these difficulties, what's going on in the country, so you have done a great job to bring all these people into one forum. And especially for the presenters, I would like to first congratulate and also would like to give my best regards and my best wishes for their future endeavors if they are going to work on the same projects. And the comments, you have to take them seriously, and then surely it will add to your work. So wish you all the best for all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. On behalf of the Faculty of Management, Social Sciences and Humanities, to show our gratitude and thank you very much for sharing technical two of the faculty, and also during this difficult time with you sharing this session. Thank you very much, ma'am, and also thank you very much the judge panel, and also wish you all the best presenters and hope that you will amend all these comments in future and take these things in your future results as well. So thank you everyone.
Thank you very much, Professor. That was such a scholarly session on almost all the sessions that we were studying so far. All these valuable insights gave us a new perspective that one should adapt while discussing these issues practically. On behalf of the gathering here, I would like to thank Professor Amila Jayarathne for chairing this session. And I would like to thank the presenters on behalf of the gathering here for the valuable knowledge that they have provided us. GGTY Gunathilake, MS Supun, FMH Sigirige, PCDU Silva, TD Meepagala, and W Premarathne. NS Akurugoda, MN Maduwanthi, GHK Fonseka, RMAM Rathnayake, DU Kasthuriarachchi, PMTR Silva, and KR Ambepitiya. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now, on behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to request all speakers and the chairperson of this session to turn on their video cameras for an official photograph. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a privilege to share the knowledge in this moment with all of you. With that, we conclude the second parallel technical session on management and finance of the Faculty of Management, Social Sciences and Humanities at the 14th International Research Conference of General Sir John Kotalawala Defence University. Thank you all for your honorable contribution. I kindly request you to join me the first technical session on Social Sciences and Humanities at 1:30 p.m. Have a pleasant day.